Okay, welcome everybody. We're just admitting people into this webinar. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about housekeeping before we get going this evening. I feel a bit out of practice, actually. I was just chatting with my colleague Eleanor before we were live. We normally do these webinars once a month, and we had a break in September with our kind of busy block of events. And just after 1 month, we feel a little out of the routine, but we've got a great evening this evening with Zoe and Trish joining us. But before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. So we're recording this, so you'll be able to watch it on YouTube afterwards if you want. So don't worry if you need to rush out or the connection fails for you. It'll all be there online afterwards. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us a message using the chat or the Q&A. It doesn't really matter. My colleague Eleanor, give us a wave, Eleanor. She's working from home this evening, so thank you for that. Eleanor will field all of the questions as they come in during the evening. Anything that we can answer in real time, we'll do that. And then towards the end of the webinar, I'll hand over to Eleanor, and she's going to run through the questions and kind of take over the comparing, if you like. So let us introduce Trish Patterson and Zoe Murphy. So Trish was a volunteer at Dragon's Back in 2021 and 2022 and finished 7th this year. Trisha's got a great story of fortitude and suffering to go with her 7th place. And Zoe was 4th in 2021 and then has come back as a volunteer in 2022 and as part of our media team in 2023. So these are two exceptional runners who know the Dragon's Back better than most people. They've seen it from every side, and we're going to get some real insights this evening as we chat with them. One thing I would say is tonight is very much focused on Dragon's Back, but in many regards, you could swap the word Dragon's Back for Cape Wrath Ultra. And much of what we're talking about in terms of community and experience and preparation applies equally to that race. But no apologies, tonight is very Dragon's Back focused. So welcome, Trish, Zoe. Great to have you here. Trish, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
Well, thank you very much for having me. So about me, I've been running ultra running specifically for probably about 6 or 7 years, I would say, and more seriously in the last sort of 5 years. I coach as well, so running is a massive part of my every single day. I kind of live, breathe, sleep it. Absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm involved in it pretty much every single day, most of my waking time. When I'm not running or talking about running, in other things, I have twin girls who are 7, so that's exhausting. And it's particularly good mental training, I think, for long distance running. And when I'm not trying my best to keep us all alive, I'm mostly alternating between that. Prior to running, background wise, I've done a range of different things. So I was in the army for a bit. I then worked in long-term security, and I do this predominantly speaking and coaching now, and that's me.
Excellent. Zoe, would you like to tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am probably ultra running since about 2017. Before that was a road runner. So I started running in about 2010, 2011. So road running, marathon running, like everyone else, chase the pace, chase the time, and then got to a point where you sort of go, what am I chasing? Ended up doing a Snowdon marathon and just loved it. Just loved the element of it's not about the pace. You know, you can forget that and you can just go with the race. And I just loved it. And that then sort of kick-started a passion for the trails. I had a border collie at the time, so I used to just take him mountain running, and then I just loved that side of it more, so switched to that. which then, as many people do, read books. I read Dean Carnesi's book, Ultra Running Man, and I thought, 100 miles, that sounds horrendous. I was like, I want to do that. And I was like, that was it. That was where it all started. And I was like, how do I get and I wanted to run the Western States, and my challenge still begins. I started that challenge in 2017 and haven't made it yet. But that's where the ultra journey began for me. Before that, I wasn't really a runner. So I've been a runner sort of like 12, 13 years now, but it's not something I've done from a kid. I was that person who ran from lamppost to lamppost, walking in between. It didn't come to me from being a kid. So I am definitely that. But when people go, oh yeah, but you've done it forever, it isn't. It's just hard work to then become the runner today. Day to day, I work in marketing, hence how I came to be on the media team this year at Dragon's Back. Day-to-day marketing and also run coaching. And then a bit like Trish, well, none of you family with Trish, spare time, we're running. And I've also in the last month got a puppy. So I have a 4-month-old puppy that is taking over my life at the moment. So that's basically what my time is doing.
Excellent. So you've both come to Dragon's Back for the first time in 2021, which is that post-COVID era. Trish, you came as a volunteer, and Zoe, bang, straight in there as a participant. Maybe Trish first. What first attracted you? How did you hear about the Dragon's Back? What made you come that first year?
Yeah, I think I'd done the spine in 2020, and a friend sent me a link, and they were like, oh, you should definitely do this race because it looks miserable. And I was like, so I remember looking at it thinking, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's obviously, soon as a big pull for me is world's toughest ultra marathon, mountain marathon. So I saw that and I was like, I'm in. Definitely 100%. Yeah, and looked at it, and I just knew I definitely wanted to be involved in some capacity. I already had a big race lined up that year. So I when I saw you could volunteer, I was like, yeah, absolutely, I definitely have to be involved. Wanted to get involved straight away, and yeah, I mean that was for me. I think volunteering is just one of the best ways you can get involved. I always knew I'd do the race. You know, having been a volunteer now, I'd always volunteer again because I think it's just as an incredible experience.
Excellent. Zoe, what was your kind of story to the Dragon's Back?
I knew of it, but I didn't really know the details, but I knew of it. You knew of the Dragon's Back, like really, really tough race. And then someone had sent me the video, and I'd watched the video, and it was like, this looks epic. But I also knew it went over Crib Goch. And I ran up Snowdon, you know, loads of times, but never, like, you wouldn't get me over Crib Goch. I hate edges, I hate drops, I hate all the stuff that you love, Shane, basically. I hate it. I'm a bit clumsy, so generally if there's an edge, I'm going to be the one that trips over it. So I just, because of I was like, I'm never going near that race, but it just niggled away at me, and I was like, but the race looks so epic, I can't not do something because of a small section of it. So it was a bit like, I'm a bit gung-ho, so I was like, do you know what, go big, enter it, and then you'll have to work out the logistics of the Crib Goch bit later. So I sort of went in the other way. I was like, once your entry's in, isn't it? And then I was like roped in a very good friend of mine, Rich Williams, who is so confident in the mountains. And I was like, literally, please, will you hold my hand and take me over Crib Goch? I think I'd done it. So I did it twice before the race. And do you know what? And I swear, I hate anything, ridges, edges. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was, and on the race day, so that was third time over it on race day.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the event team up there, and there's all the other runners up there. So, whereas when you go up on your own, you sort of go, well, I don't even know which way is up. When there's other runners and the event team, you are much more confident. So on the race day, it was all right. But if anyone's seen the video that I'm in, I'm literally going, I just can't wait to get over Crib Goch. And that's all I cared about from the starting line. I was like, I just want to get over Crib Goch, and then it'll be okay.
I think actually that's quite it's not an uncommon story we hear from participants of having that concern about what is actually only 300 meters of technical terrain on a 380-kilometer course, but it is a big deal. It is very consequential. But I think on race day, when the safety team are there and all the participants are there, it is easy to go along with the flow, or easier.
Totally. Yeah,
I think
so
a race day, you're so absolutely exhausted. Falling would be a favour, to be honest. Because I don't even really remember. Like, I was just getting across just because I was so tired. I wanted to get to the end.
I definitely know why the race doesn't go south to north, because basically the terrain gets more and more technical, doesn't it? So literally by day 6, you'd just be tripping over your own feet. So at least the other way, when you're on the Taft Trail, you're like, I've just got to put one foot in front of the other.
Can you imagine doing it kind of south to north with day 1 being day 6?
Oh my God, no. Could you
Okay.
imagine? Don't even think about it, Shane. Don't even think
No,
about doing a reverse race.
I've been asked a few times if we would do a kind of north-south swap, but I've always said no. Okay, so Trish, I was keen to ask you, you've kind of touched on the volunteering first. How do you think this helped you kind of prepare for the race, the insights that you got?
I think there's so much to be gained from volunteering. I mean, particularly if you want to do the race, I would 100% say volunteer if you can. I mean, firstly, it's epic in itself, but most importantly, from a racing perspective, it's an opportunity to see every aspect of the race in its, you know, in its glory. So understanding what the tents are going to be like when you get into location, understanding what those locations are going to be like in terms of, you know, is it close to the stream, etc., that kind of thing. What kind of food you're going to be eating, critical, really critical stuff. Understanding what you're going to be eating on a daily basis, and if you're going to enjoy that or want something different. Understanding the complexities of the camp environment, you know, all of that kind of stuff is really crucial to you as a racer, knowing how to plan your time when you come into camp, how to utilize that time effectively. So as a volunteer, don't you know, don't take this the wrong way. You are worked hard as a volunteer, and you should be, because you're there for, you know, hundreds of races, so you really do have to give everything you've got. But I think it's an incredible opportunity to not just see what people go through on a daily basis, and you'll see everything from, you know, from the front runners who are racing really, really hard every day to the people who are racing just to make those cutoffs. And it's, you know, it's all equally hard. So it gives you an opportunity to understand that, appreciate that, you know, understanding what kit people are using, what nutrition works. And those are all priceless things that you can't really understand until you get into the event, and until you start talking to athletes, until you start seeing that for yourself. So I think volunteering is crucial, and I'd tell anyone who wanted to do Dragon's Back to volunteer first.
Yeah, and I, as a race organizer, I think there's literally a priceless value of having a group of people who passionately are involved in ultra running and mountain running, and they want to volunteer, or they've done the race before, whatever their motivations are. That's a real important part of the whole experience for everybody there. Okay, so Zoe, you came in the opposite direction. You mentioned your gun ho jumping at the deep end, but you've done it in reverse. So what's your experience of doing competing first and then coming back to volunteer?
She knew I was coming back first, Shane. That's why she came back.
Coming into it, I guess, just from the total unknown, it was a shock. I think for me, I've never done a multi-day before. So as I just said, I like to go in at a deep end. So I've never done a multi-day, and I've sort of done sort of 100 milers and just you run till you finish sort of thing. And I just had that. I wanted to do a multi-day. And I don't know, I quite like an unknown. Like, I quite like the challenge of it. I sort of was like, do you know what? I'm just all in for this. But for people who know me, I'm quite an organised person. And the thing about the Dragon's Back is organised and admin and prep you can be as fit as you like, but if you don't sort out your admin and your prep and your camp prep and your kit, that's where it can really go wrong. So as much as I didn't really know what to expect in camp, I did know the route. That was one thing I had covered, was the whole route. But I was very organised in myself. So Trish will know, Robin from this year will know, as I was telling them all about my little bags and what goes in your bag, and all the rest of it. So that to me was how I figured I'm going to get through this. I was like, go into this super organised. You don't really know what you're going to expect, but it's that phrase of control the controllables. So do what you can do, know the route. And then I just thought, well, I didn't really. I just went in a bit gung-ho. But it was, you know,
but it was obviously good. But you came back though as well. That's the interesting thing. So you did the race, then you came back. Not once, but twice.
I came back twice. First year I came back, honestly, was simply to give back. It was the most amazing experience from running, you know, that side of it, but the most amazing team, the people, the community, the camaraderie. And I literally, that's basically how I met Trish. Like, Trish actually made my race. I wouldn't have finished that race if it wasn't for Trish, because I had some real troubles on day 2 with heat stroke. I was in a mess. I had messaged my husband to say, you're coming to get me in the morning. I won't make you come out now. It's really late at night, but you're coming to get me. I'm done. I was so ill. And in the morning, I got up, but just didn't even have my kit ready, nothing. And I bundled over, and one of the guys on camp just said to me, Zoe, because as you do, you sort of prep, you go, well, I'll wear that clean t-shirt on that day. And he was like, Zoe, whatever you've got that's dry and clean, because there was no drying tape then, so all your stuff was wet. He was like, go back, put on your dry stuff and just feel good and try and leave. And I was just miserable. I was sick. And I walked over to Trish with my like sausage and stuff, like half packed, basically quitting. And she was just like, what's wrong with you? Like, she's the most chirpiest, happiest person. Come on, mate, what's wrong with you now? You know, and you're like, not in the mood. I was just like, oh, I'm done. I was like, I'm so sick. And she just said those words. And she was like, all you've got to do is walk out, dib in and walk out. She said, walk down the road, you can come back. She said, go half a mile down the road. And if you still feel absolutely as bad as you do, just walk back. We're here. You know, it doesn't matter. But she said, you've at least got to try. And I hadn't eaten all night. I'd been retching all night. It was horrendous. I'd barely drank anything. I'd not eaten the night before. And, you know, and you're just like, I can't do today. But Trish was like, you can do this. Like, have you got nutrition on you? And I was like, yes. And she just basically pushed me out the start gate, basically, and was like,
you're doing it.
Well, exactly. She was like, I don't want to see you again. And in my head, I was going, you're going to see me again. But you get half a mile down the road and you go, well, I made it half a mile down the road. I may as well keep trying. And then that was it then. And then you just keep pushing. And then I spent the day chasing cutoffs, but I made the cutoffs. And that was day 3 in the bag. So then after that, I was like, I saw Trish at camp and she was like, yes. And then that was it. So then I was like, right, we're making this. We're making it. And that was that.
So for everyone who is listening, but maybe is not so aware, 2021 was another very hot edition, and days 1 and 2 in particular were absolute boilers. Probably slightly hotter than the very hot edition this year. The difference for this year was it was hot every day for the full 6 days, whereas 2021 days 1 and 2 were probably slightly hotter, maybe just a degree, but it was really hot. I can remember sitting in the shade next to one of the tents in the afternoon thinking, oh my goodness me, all these people are frying up on the hill. What have I done as an organizer? Made it very challenging. And day 1 overnight camp in 2021, it felt like a war zone, when there was runners just lying around everywhere being sick and too weak to get up, and it was carnage. It was absolute carnage.
At the end of day 1, I got back to my tent and I was the only one in my tent. I was like, okay.
I think I guess there's a few interesting things we're touching on there, in that it is hard and the weather is all part of that. But also I think you've just very clearly demonstrated with your description of what can be done when you try, and just sorting your shit out, dealing with your personal admin and getting up and starting is half the challenge a lot of the time.
100%. Like, you just don't give up. It's like, the race has got to take you out, not you go out the race, if you ask me. That's ultra running though, isn't it?
I think that's another good thing you get from volunteering as well. Like, you really do see how hard it is. You know, you really do see the state of people, and
you see how they overcome it. And you go, I get it. Like, you come into camp every day and you go, this is so hard. And you question, you're like, can I go again tomorrow? But you do, don't you? You get up, you get your kit on, and you get out that starting pen. You're like, I can do this. And yeah, definitely. There was some broken people at the end of every day, but they got up and they got out that start pen every morning.
Absolutely. So I was going to ask you a bit about your training. So you've both got a load of experience. Trish, you work as a coach as well. So we'll maybe go back to Trish and tell us about just give us an overview. We don't need to get into the fine details, but just how you approach Dragon's Back in terms of training.
So I think the big difference with Dragon's Back to maybe some other, ultra marathons is the fact that it is the elevation and the technical terrain. So I would say as a coach, there's two aspects. Those are the key two aspects for Dragon's Back. You've got to have the elevation in your legs, and you've got to be able to move over that technical terrain confidently and competently. So for me, I did just to kind of overall, I did I focused on getting elevation in, and back-to-back days, a few back-to-back days, maybe in a block. But generally, it's a lot of work. I mean, it also depends what you're aiming for in the race. Like if you're trying to make cutoffs, maybe your training will be a little bit different. But I would say for anybody, regardless, you need to train hard for Dragon's Back. I was hoping to run quite well in the race. So yeah, the training was hard. I mean, especially when you're trying to balance that with life as well. You're talking, running almost every single day, sometimes twice a day. I'm a flat lander, so I basically don't have any hills where I live. I live in the New Forest, so that was treadmill miles in terms of elevation, and making sure I was doing strength and conditioning stuff in order to cope with the aspects that I couldn't get on a everyday basis when I wasn't able to get to technical areas. So you've got to make time for the technical areas. You've got to make time for that technical terrain to actually physically train on it. When you're not there, you've got to make the time up either in high mileage or on a treadmill. I would say that those are the key things that I focused on.
Okay. And Zoe, what was your approach?
Well, I don't actually know if we've had this conversation, Shane. I think we have. But my training is basically how nobody needs to train for the Dragon's Back, is how my training went. So how I would train is very different from how I did train. I had a stress fracture that I got sort of late February in the year. So in the year of Dragon's Back, the late Feb, I got a stress fracture, but I couldn't run for 4 months. So my first training session for the Dragon's Back was a 5K on the 2nd of July. And I basically had 6 weeks training for the Dragon's Back. So my training is definitely not how you want to train. But
no.
But the approach I would take, so let's say my 2024 approach, because I'm back next year for the race, is what Trish was saying. Like what I do know is if you can get out on the terrain, if you can get out on the course, Snowdonia is unique. It really is. If you can get out onto that day 1 and day 2, I think that really, really helps to that technical terrain. The back-to-back big days Trish was talking about, I think that's really important. And yeah, you are going to be covering high mileage. Not everyone can do it. Not everyone's body can take it. And I will say, and I know Trish will agree, like there is cross training that can be done there. Don't panic if someone goes, my body cannot take the mileage that some of these people are doing. You can cross train the bike, Stairmasters. Stairmaster is a great source in the gym for getting strong for those ascents and things like that. So there are definitely ways you can train that isn't just straight running, but I'll totally back Trish on that gym work. That is really important to back up all the running that you're going to do, because you are going to build to some big miles. I do quite a bit of treadmill running, which allows you to do a lot of elevation with short recoveries. That helps as well.
I think so. I've swapped some messages with one of our participants from this year called Sally, and she gave us this fantastic quote, and she says, I'm not a high mileage runner. I do about 70k a week, and that's like peak. But she came to the Dragon's Back and was successful. It can be done.
Totally. And I think a big amount of that is being sensible with pacing as well. So being like you said at the start this year, Shane, you said, remember, it's a 6-day race, or some words to that effect.
Yeah.
Remember, it's the race isn't won on one day. You've got to, treat it as a 6-day race. And if you get the pacing right, actually you can stay strong throughout the race. If you go in too hard too early, and that's what a lot of people do, you're going to struggle for the rest of the race. So, you don't have to be the fittest person going. You've just got to be able to know that you can make the cutoffs and back yourself and believe that your pacing will hold out if you do the work. And if you do the work and get your pacing right, get your strategy right, because Dragon's Back, there's a lot of strategy involved in Dragon's Back. You've got to think of the long term. You've got to think of how you're going to make each day work. But yeah, you can definitely do that for sure. You don't have to do massive high mileage, but you do have to be fit.
So, Zoe, you've just mentioned the stress fracture, which seems like a pretty significant challenge prior to your Dragon's Back. And I do remember you telling me that before, actually. When I asked the question 2 minutes ago, I had forgotten. But as soon as you started speaking, I was like, oh, of course, yes, the stress fracture. So I'm not going to ask you what your challenge was before. But Trish, as you built up to this year's event, were there kind of challenges, obstacles that came your way?
I think the biggest one is definitely parenting, because
Okay.
when you've got a young family, it's really hard to take the time away to train, when you're going away on long weekends. And I would try and balance it. So maybe a back-to-back weekend in 4. But it's still a lot. It's a lot to ask of your partner, of your family, when you're away for the Friday, the Saturday, back late on the Sunday. That's hard. So balancing that is tough. And it's not even just that. Every Saturday, for example, if I have to drive somewhere, then I could be, even if I leave at 4:30 in the morning, I'm not going to be back probably until after lunch. So it's a big ask on your family. I would say that's one of the biggest pieces, I would say, particularly for women. But for all families, men and women, it's difficult giving that much time to yourself in pursuit of something which not everyone's going to get. That's the piece. So I think finding the time to train at quite a high level, that was the biggest the biggest thing for me. I mean, it'd be great if I could have trained more, but again, I haven't got all the time in the day, and you've got to compromise. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest factors for me.
Yeah. Okay. I think that emotional investment that people make into the Dragon's Back race, or any of these big long challenges, could be lots of other races as well, actually. It's not the financial commitment. I don't think it's the time away from home. It's the missed drinks with friends, or the missed birthday dinners, or whatever it is. That's the real investment, I think.
Yeah, totally.
And it's why you see people pretty emotional at the event when they're successful, or even if they're not successful and things don't work out. It's because of that big emotional investment.
Huge emotional investment. I think the Dragon's Back race for me was the biggest emotional investment I've put in a race, just because of the build up, and it's I would say by far the biggest one for me.
And you've got to invest in it, haven't you, fully? To succeed in it, you've got to invest in it. It's not the sort of thing you just do on a wing and a prayer. You're all in, as me and our favourite phrase, Trish, all in.
Okay, so I was kind of interested to ask you about your toughest moments in the event, and I think, Zoe, you probably already described it. That start on, was it the morning of day 2 or day 3 morning?
Day 3, yeah. It was day 3 from day 2 into that day 3. Oh, it was awful, just awful. That was so hard.
And okay, to follow that up, maybe elaborate a bit more on how you dealt with it.
So basically, day 2 actually went pretty well. I had a great day running. I thought, I managed to drink a lot of hydration. It wasn't, and then, well, I've since learned. So here's a lesson for everyone that I have learned. Heat stroke, I always thought was to do with the sun on your face, but it's actually the sun on the back of your neck. So this is what I've learned, that actually it's about protecting the back of your neck, and I didn't know that. So obviously I'm guessing all day I had the sun blazing down the back of my neck. So it didn't kick in. I literally got to camp and I sat down. I was like, I don't feel very well. And it felt like someone had hit me over the head with a baseball bat. And that was it then. Like my mate just said, you sunk into a corner and I wouldn't speak. I was just like sat there, but I couldn't eat. I couldn't really drink. And then I just basically went to the tent and I'd quit there and then. Honestly, I'd quit. I threw my kit on the floor. I didn't get anything prepped for the next day. I had no one else in my tent for day 1 and day 2 because I'd lost all the people on day 1. So it was brilliant. I had my own tent for 2 days, but I literally spent the night rocking in a tent on my own. And I did have those thoughts where you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do on my own? If something goes wrong here, I've got no one to help me. But luckily it wasn't. It was just me rocking with a head torch inside a tent, having a really bad time of things. And I remember going to the toilet about something like 3:30, 4 in the morning. The catering crew had just started. And I like bundled over the catering tent and I was like, have you got any bread? And this lovely person went off and came back with this bread roll. And I was like, thank you. And I sat in the tent trying to nibble this bread roll with a bottle of electrolyte, just like, I'm done. I am done. It was just awful. So just no sleep, nausea all night. And then, just rocked up to breakfast with everyone else getting ready to leave. And I was just like, I'm done. And I said bye to everyone and I wished them luck. And I was like, good luck with the rest of your race. You won't see me later today. I'm going home. And it was just awful. So bad.
That does sound pretty bad. And let's just remind people that you finished 4th in the end.
I did. Yeah, I did. I had good days around that. But yeah, day 3. And do you know what? So yeah, I am. I do feel blessed that I'm not chasing cutoffs as a general runner, but that day 3, I was chasing cutoffs and it adds a whole other element of stress that I admire those people who are chasing cutoffs so much, because the stress, I made it into McCuntleth with about 7 minutes to spare and the team were literally like, Zoe, get your stuff together. They were like kicking me out. They were like, get out. It's so stressful. And then I was like, I've got to get to camp, and I was just running and hiking and the stress on top of it was another element. So I literally doff my cap to any race who does it to cutoffs. It's amazing.
It's definitely a big stress. So Trish, how much do you want to share about your challenges from this year, because there were a few, weren't there?
I mean, as you've seen some recent photos, they're ongoing as well.
Yes.
I mean, day 3 for me must be the curse of day 3, because my day 3 was horrific. I've definitely still got PTSD about day 3. I mean, I had really bad nausea on day 3, and I really struggled. The whole day was incredibly hard. Wanting to be sick. Just the whole day, and it was hot. I mean, it wasn't terribly hot, but it was hot, which doesn't help when you feel, when you wake up and you feel like you want to lay in bed because you feel sick. So it was pretty miserable. And I've been in those situations before, so I know what it's like. And I think also, I've got the experience to tough it out as well, which I think your perspective is a really important piece when you're going through tough points. And the bit I think to remember with any race is that you're not the only one suffering. So the moment you get wrapped up in your own suffering, and it's very easy to do. We're all human. That's what we do. We feel like, oh, my suffering is terrible. But I do think it's really important to laugh at your own misery. And I do try very hard to laugh at mine when I'm not laughing at Zoe Murphy's suffering instead. But I think it's really important to just to understand that something I say to myself quite a lot is this time will pass. And I think that works very well for when you're in crap moments, but also when when things are going well as well, because you've got to appreciate that the time will pass. So even though it's miserable, that time itself, that time when you're feeling really, really down and really crap and it's not working out, that time is going to pass. you know, so you're going to feel better at some point. You just have to ride it out. But also, you know, even though you could be riding high, you know, and having the race of your life, and that time will also pass. So you've got to enjoy every single moment and try and stay present in the situation that you're in. And I think I'm quite good at doing that, at staying present and accepting when things aren't going well, and going through it. So I had a lot of issues, more issues than I wanted, but you know, that's life. And I think when you go into the Dragon's Back, everyone will have their piece on what they want to get out of Dragon's Back, whether it be a time, a place, you know, beat the cutoffs, whatever. But I, like Zoe said, I think the key aim has to be that you beat the dragon, you know, you do the course. So for me, the journey and the value is in the fight to get to Cardiff. And that's, you know, that's where it's all worthwhile. That's the piece that ultimately we all have to buy into. And because everyone is bought into that, aren't they? Everyone wants to get to Cardiff. Everyone wants everyone else to get to Cardiff. And I think that there's that collective will for everyone to survive and get there, and acknowledgement that everyone is in their own form of pain, whether they're, you know, Robin Cassidy storming the front, or you know, you're the last person coming over the line with the dragon. They're both equally incredible things who and both individuals will have put in huge amounts of effort and suffering in order to get it. So everyone suffers. You're gonna suffer. Crack on, make the most of it, enjoy it.
I think what's special about the Dragon's Back, particularly the Dragon's Back, is that there is a high attrition rate, and nobody comes to that race with any guaranteed finish. And whilst that makes it stressful, it's also what makes it special, because if you get to Cardiff, you have done something truly extraordinary. And if you want one of those like life-defining memories and experiences, you need to earn it. They don't come easy. And I guess, you know, you want everyone to be successful, but you have to accept also the price of those valuable experiences, the fact that unless you are absolutely on your A game, you're not going to be successful. And part of that is luck, you know, just people pick up injuries and illness, and
shoes fall apart. Yeah, and I think that the Dragon's Back is such a race where so much can happen as well. Because, you know, I remember like Zoe, Robin and I were talking about, actually you could be hours ahead of someone on the first day, hours ahead of someone on the second day, but have an issue on the third day, and that sucks up. Actually, that slows you down, whatever, by maybe a couple of minutes per mile. But over the whole day, actually that adds up quite a lot. So if you have a big injury, you roll your foot, you sprain your ankle, you know, get an injury. It doesn't matter how good you were for the first couple of days. You can lose the race or be out of the race in a moment. So there's huge pressure to every single moment that you're racing to stay on top of stuff, because you can lose it like that.
Yeah. I think we're going to be talking hopefully with Robin and Hugh at some point in the future about their Dragon's Back experience, and we'll get maybe a bit more into the racing with them. And you know, they had an extraordinary race, both of them, and I think they'll have another slightly different take on the whole experience.
Totally.
So I suspect that some of our regular listeners, viewers, might kind of get a sense that there's a bit more informal banter between us than some of the other guests that we have. And for me, this is kind of touches on like one of the most important and valuable things about the Dragon's Back, in how you form new friends and the kind of camaraderie around the event. And for a little bit of background, Trish, Zoe, myself and Robin had a weekend running day 5. When was it? In May, June, something like that this year?
July, wasn't it?
Was it July? And we didn't know each other particularly well beforehand, and it all kind of just came together in a fortuitous way. But it was a brilliant weekend of banter and fun. And I think that's one of the really special things about how the event can pull you together with, you know, new people and expand your friendship group. And that's, even as the organizer, I'm not even taking part, I'm experiencing that, and it feels special to me. And you know, we've maintained that WhatsApp group with banter is still going.
Basically photos of Trish's feet falling apart on a daily basis is what we get.
And your dog, Trish? And your dog.
Oh, I'm the dog.
Yeah. I mean, what a collection, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, look, here's my toenail. Oh, and here's my puppy.
So, Trish, why don't you kind of expand on that a little bit? What's your experience of that kind of wider community element of the event?
I think the Dragon's Back is phenomenal for community. I mean, and I think the particularly because it's day by day, so you can't help as a volunteer getting sucked into, you know, wanting the participants to do well. You want them to win. You're invested in them emotionally. I mean, you know, every time I've volunteered, I'm invested in every single individual I come across because I want that individual to do well. And I'm genuinely, I mean, I do love it as well. Like I can't, you know, I'm probably quite up there in terms of scale, in terms of like how much I absolutely love it anyway. But I do genuinely want every individual I see to do well and excel. And for me, I want to give everything I can to help that individual make it. You know, there's, I mean, I've been super lucky that, you know, I've made so many friends through Dragon's Back. I mean, seeing that first year, you know, met Zoe that first year, watched Simon, a friend of mine, smash it out the park and, you know, run a fantastic race against Russell, you know, who's also fantastic as well. So I'm very, very lucky that I've met and continue to, you know, made incredible friendships with so many people. You know, met Robin last year. Robin and Zoe and I have done a huge amount of stuff together. You know, Andrea, who's I met 2 years ago, we've stayed really good friends ever since. So I've actually made some of my closest friends, you know, from Dragon's Back, and I feel exceptionally lucky to have met those individuals. But you can't not be inspired by the people you meet on Dragon's Back, because it attracts those kind of people. It attracts people who I think want more, who are willing to, you know, who are willing to have some suffering, who understand that there's growth from that, and subsequently they, you know, the type of people who are willing to give as much of themselves as possible to help others and invest in others. I think it does attract those kind of people. So it's hard not to make friends in that environment, because you know, you're the same people, you want the same things and you value the same things. And I particularly think, I think one of the key aspects of Dragons is the values of it, you know. And Shane, I think you as a race director, you really do impart those values. And those values, you know, they often say stuff comes from the top down. And if you look at good organizations, you can see they've got good values at the top. And, you know, Shane, yours were all right, but when you've got good values at the top, it does cascade really, really well, and you encourage and you attract the right people. And particularly by having you know, volunteers who are not everyone is a runner, by the way, you know, people just support it because they love it as well. But certainly by having the right volunteers creates the type of event you want. And that's what Dragon's Back is. It's inspiring people, doing and encouraging and helping with inspiring things. It's fantastic.
Well, that's thank you for those very kind words. Zoe, over to you. You need to usurp.
I'm gonna have to big you up now, aren't I, Trish? Thanks. What are you gonna say now?
You can just go, mate. You leave now.
I'll just leave.
It's a door.
Oh no, I think what it's about from the team side of things, I think, like you said, not everyone's a runner, but everyone shares an ethos. And I think it's that ethos, isn't it? That if everyone shares it and everyone's willing to do everything. And I think that's the bit. You're just mucking at any point to do any job. No one goes, oh, I'm kitchen, I'm not helping you. I don't even know. Put some signage up or whatever. If there's someone struggling, everyone just jumps in, and it's like that proper family that everyone helps everyone. So from the volunteering side, I think that's amazing, and you make really good friends, and you're together for 6 days, all day, every day, sort of, and you're working with these people. And yeah, truthfully, some of those people in other walks of life, you may not have crossed paths, and you may not have gone, well, we actually have that much in common outside of this. But when you're together, you actually find lots of common ground. And then, as we all know, as a runner, you've always got that common ground. So you meet lots, when you're from a runner side of things, there's that element of shared suffering, experience, fun, joy, all it, you share those experiences, and no one ever gets it unless you've done it. You know, you can talk about the Dragon's Back, or not other races as well, these massive events that, or FKTs or whatever people do, but unless you've been there and done it, you just don't understand, do you? And I think the Dragon's Back is, as soon as you speak to someone, you've done the Dragon's Back, you instantly have a bond with them. You just do, because you both get what you've both been through. And I think there's an automatic friendship there. And like Trish said, my personal experience is I've made friends for life, friends that I ran with during the race, and then friends from volunteering. Like this year, being involved as a volunteer, to go back and see the friends that I made last year racing was just like, I just loved it every day. I think I had a smile from ear to ear every day, just loving it. Might have been loving watching your suffering, Trish, but I was loving it either way.
I think one of the key things that I love about, because I was talking to someone about this last week, because they asked me what someone mutually who we knew, what they did, and I was like, I've no idea what they do for a living, like, because it's so irrelevant in terms of what you do. It's about what you enjoy, what you like, you know, it's about more that defines you as an individual than what you do to kind of enable your, you know, yourself to live or something like that. It's you know, it just doesn't define you. So I just think it's really nice when you go to somewhere and the immediate question isn't, oh, what do you do for a living? It's, what races have you done? What do you want to do? What are you running? Are you keen to do dragons? You know, that's the kind of stuff, like, it defines more of the individual and the individual wants than what they do.
And of course, what watch have you got? That's a very common question.
Always.
Yeah.
What I would say, and I think is a big thing, like for you guys this year, we did a lot of training together, and that was awesome. When I did it, I didn't know anyone doing the race. I knew one other person doing the race, and our lives were quite different. So I did a lot of training on my own, or I roped in friends. Do you fancy going for a day into Wales? Anyway, but I didn't do it with other people doing the Dragon's Back. And I think, so anyone out there who is, you know, on their own and they don't know people who are doing it, I would absolutely say get involved with, you know, either puts me up on Facebook, and when someone says I'm doing day 2, anyone want to join me, just say, yeah, I'll do it. Or if you can, with the time, because to meet people and before you get there, I think really is a real help. So it would just get involved with some of the raw adventures, or just when a group of people are going to do it, just get involved.
That makes a massive difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When I think about this year, obviously we'd organised our tent, so we knew everyone in our tent before we got there, which was a massive plus, because you don't have that awkward kind of like, oh, do you mind if I sleep facing you or away from you? It's like, or like in Robin and Andrea's case, I was just like across you. But
who needs strangers, Trish, when you can wake up in the night and scream at the person next to you to stop looking at a map? You can just do that, Trish.
Or Robin. But yeah, I mean, so like being able to meet people, organize your tent, you know, to do recce days together, you know, just having someone that you can, a nice friendly face when you come into the checkpoint, for example, or at the end of the day, those are really important things. They make a big deal.
Yeah.
So, you know, I definitely, again, volunteer.
Great. I should say to anyone who's thinking about volunteering, the Dragon's Back is our most popular event for volunteers. It's normally oversubscribed by 100% in terms of volunteer applications. So put them in early, sell yourself well, offer to do anything that will support the event. Then
or do another event, show them how good you are. And
then well, in fact, there's a lovely person who phoned up the office last week, and he's he said, I'd like to volunteer at Dragon's Back, but how do I get it there, and blah blah blah. And I was like, come to another event, come to one of the events that's less popular, because we will choose people we know. We always choose a mix of people, but there's always an element of choosing a core team of people who you can trust. Okay, shall we move on? So I was going to ask you about your personal highlights. And actually, it could be as a volunteering work role, or it could be from your racing experience. Choose one, two, anything that you like in terms of personal highlights. And maybe Zoe, let's ask you first.
I think I did 2021, which obviously the first year of Cardiff Castle. So no one knew what was coming for the last day. And I think running, I've done a recce, so I'd ran through the park and I knew like that was just awesome. I'd never been to Cardiff, so I was like, oh, there's the castle. But on that day, when you realise what you'd been through, so I ran the second half of day 6 with Katie Mills. We ended up sort of hooking up at the support point and running the last half of the day together, which was awesome. But I can't think what the hill is that you crest, but you crest the hill and you can see the sea. And it's like, I think both of us had we were like crying. I think it's just so emotional, but I think we're just exhausted. It was like, we need to get to there. But that moment and then getting into the castle was just something else. And then when I volunteered the year after, genuinely, my heart bled for the guys that couldn't have that finish because, well, Trish knows from this year, like, it's epic, isn't it? When you run into those castle walls. Yeah. It's just amazing.
It is awesome. It is awesome.
And what you've achieved to get there, you know, all that emotion comes together in that moment of like what I've done to get to here. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was doing the kind of recce work to redesign day 5 and day 6, the first time I ran what was essentially the day 6 route, and I did that exact experience you're describing. You see the coast first, then you see Cardiff, and like in my head, it just all clicked together. It's like, oh, absolutely, we are making the right decision here. This is just the right thing to do with the race. Yeah. It just feels so logical and the right thing to do to finish.
As runners, we were obviously all cursing you in the week for adding the extra day, though. We were like, what the hell's he doing? In fact, day 5 was going to be longer. Oh my God, everyone was scared about day 5, which, you know, day 5 is a monster day. And the guy, I can't remember his name. He was back this year, wasn't he? The guy from the video of 2021. I can't remember his name.
The Swedish guy.
Yeah.
Well,
and I had a chat with him this year in the tent, and he was crying because they're filming him, aren't they? He's going, I made day 5. But I swear he shares the emotion of every runner on that camp that day because we all feared it. It was just the talk of day 5. No one knew what to expect because it was new. We were cursing you because we were like, oh my God, day 5's longer and we've got another day to go. But it's epic, and it definitely finishes the race. It's amazing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Trish, your highlight.
My highlight, I think my highlight would have to be seeing my kids when I came into Cardiff Castle, just because you know, day 3, 4, 5, like from day 3 it was all quite hard graft, and you know, starting off day 5, like I could barely walk. I mean, day 6 it was really, really miserable. So yeah, I mean, for me, just getting through that day and seeing my kids at the end was you know, an amazing thing. But also I was so proud that my kids got to see so many awesome people. I mean, you know, to see particularly so many awesome women running and doing exceptionally well. I mean, that was incredible. And you know, I love that my kids now play in the garden pretending to be Robin Cassidy, not me, awkward. But, pretending like with their poles and like their kit and stuff, and I love that. I just think it's awesome, like how totally inspiring for you know, for them. I mean, you know, what fantastic role models. But I think for me, the personal you know, in terms of the race highlights, the first year I did, it was amazing seeing Simon run such a strong race. And Simon and I did the spine together back in 2020. Toasted in the last 6 miles, but we won't talk about that. But you know, to see him run so incredibly well on that race, and to come in, you know, as the first Welshman to win the race, it was awesome. And you know, to see Robin, I mean, Robin and I have done a huge amount of training together, and you know, she puts in a huge amount of work, and she has grafted this year. I mean, you know, Zoe will tell you she's put in a ton of work, and people don't realize that she works full time. She's doing a PhD. Like she's not just out training every day. She has a busy life, but she's so disciplined in terms of putting the time and effort in to the training. To see it all come together for her in such a spectacular way was, again, just really awesome, watching her go up on stage. And yeah, loved that. I think it was absolutely amazing. But equally, seeing people who've given all that they've got. So I remember Ellie, you know Ellie. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, she day 5, at the end of day 5, I think we sat down, and I got she was having a bit of a rough time, and she was like, I don't think I can do tomorrow. And she was like, yeah, you definitely can. But to see her then cross the line, and you know, to do so exceptionally well, all of those guys who are just pushing really hard just to get through. I mean, that's awe-inspiring, isn't it? You know, that's absolute full glory there. I mean, huge recognition to keep grafting, keep pushing, even when you don't know if you're going to make it, but to push on regardless. And I think those for me those people are the key highlights for me.
Yeah, I certainly find you mentioned earlier about feeling, you know, a bit emotional and tearful when you see these kind of moments of grafting from the people you know. And I form these like connections with the participants as well. And you know, you can feel yourself feeling emotional when you hear that somebody you've kind of got an interest in has dropped out the race, or you know, something's gone wrong for them, or they're suffering. And yeah, it really does drag you into in a very emotional level to each participant's experience. Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to hand over to Eleanor, who has, I know, been collating some questions as they've come through. So this is a real simple one. What would you say to anybody who was sitting on the fence right now about a Dragon's Back entry for next year? Sorry, Trish, sorry, Zoe, you go, sorry.
I know it's a dead cliche, but it is true. Like, anything is possible. If you've got a dream and you want to do it, basically it's hard work. You know, anyone can do it. People go, I couldn't do that, I'm not fit enough, or what, but anyone can do it. And you saw it, you see the whole spectrum of people who complete the Dragon's Back. It's you've got to invest. It's an emotional investment. It's physical, it's mentally. But if you give it 100%, I do believe anything is possible. And I know it's simple and cliche, but I believe it. So
I think that's good advice.
Definitely.
Trish?
I would say there's another quote that I really like, which is one day or day one. And I mean, I'm very fortunate, I think, to have done lots of day ones, but that's because I know that one day can never happen. And we'll all have some experience of someone wanting to do something, and, you know, actually life changes and suddenly you can't do that anymore. So, you know, life is short. You only get these opportunities. And again, that's why I think it's so important that you persevere throughout Dragon's Back if you can. But you only get certain opportunities in life. You don't know what's going to come around the corner tomorrow. So make the most of today, and you know, do your day one. You might not get it.
And I would say, prepare. It's gonna be bloody tough. You're gonna have to suck up some shit. You know, it's not easy, but you do, don't you? You know, and you just get through it. Like, don't be scared. Don't be scared to try. That's the bit, because if you don't try, you'll never know. You got to try, because if you give it your all, you'll be there in Cardiff with your dragon, and that feeling's just amazing.
Yeah, nothing harder is ever easy.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Eleanor, what have you got for us?
We've had some really good questions actually this evening, so thanks for everyone who's asked them. So a few questions about training. First up, someone has asked, how much elevation a week do you need for training? So Trish, how much elevation were you aiming for?
Yeah, so I won't say my own specific elevation, because I think people get sucked into that, and as a coach I think that's a really dangerous space to be in. So what I would say is that you do need to be doing a good chunk of elevation, and obviously for Dragon's Back itself is it 12,000 meters elevation, Shane?
17,500.
Oh yes, I might have forgotten already. 17,000. So I think on peak I was doing maybe, okay, peak probably around 4,000 meters, 3.5 maybe, with a big back-to-back day or something like that. But it's almost irrelevant what I'm doing. It's what is relevant is what you can do based on your current physical performance and how long you need to get there. So there's no point in going straight into big elevation if you haven't done the groundwork. You'll get injured. You won't make Dragon's Back. So you're better off starting slower and getting your base mileage in first and building up your elevation gradually. Most of the injuries that people get prior to Dragons are because they do elevation too quickly, too sharply, and get subsequent injuries for that. So I would say keep it zone 2, do your elevation nice and easy, lots of big days on the hills, and start off doing that. But don't get sucked into what if you're going to have Robin and Hugh on next week, you're going to be talking about their elevation. Don't get sucked up into what they're doing, because it will be very, very different, their training for what you do, and their specific stuff that they do again is very, very different to what you will be doing. It varies between all top level athletes, so you've got to bear that in mind. Speak to a coach or do your homework.
And that's definitely good advice. Sorry, Zoe.
I was going to say, and people, it's easy for people who can access the mountains or live in Snowdonia. You can easily get elevation. And if you don't live near the mountains, well, like you, Trish, you don't.
No.
It's not as easy for you on every night of the week to just pop out your back door and run up a mountain. So therefore, you had to plan it, weekends, big weekends, back to back. And in the week, you weren't able to do that. You were doing some treadmill stuff, which is, you can do some really good work on a treadmill. But you've got to work with what you've got as well, haven't you? You can't be set on a number of feet, meters, whatever. You've got to work with what you've got.
And you can compensate high mileage for elevation, but again, you need to get that balance right, and it's not something you can just jump into. So you have to do, I think you have to do your homework with Dragon's Back, and you have to be I would say conservative with how you approach your training.
Yeah, that's definitely really good advice. So this question is, what was the key in the last few weeks leading up to the event besides rest? So shall we start with Zoe this time?
I think I sort of was, my training's a bit different, but if it was normal training, you still, in those last few weeks, I suppose it's just peaking and then bringing it down. Don't be trying to cram. A lot of people will try and cram towards that back end. You should have done that in that good block before. By the time you get into the last 3 or 4 weeks, you're just almost staying firing, and then you're bringing down that mileage, bringing down the elevation that you're covering, and then you're going to got pretty much those last 3 to 4 weeks that are going into it. Don't be smashing yourself trying to cram training that you've missed in the couple of months before, because it isn't going to work.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
100% agree with what Zoe says. I think those last few weeks leading up, all you're doing is you're just trying to keep the body sharp. So you're not doing any sessions where you feel you're going to die. You're still doing faster sessions, but the quality workouts are still there. But again, they're probably like a 7, 8 max out of 10, as opposed to anything higher than that. And you're just trying to keep yourself snappy going into Dragon, so you feel bouncy for their hills.
Fancy.
Fancy.
This is an interesting question, actually. Someone has asked, is the mileage in a back-to-back day the most important, or is it the number of days that you do back-to-back? Trish, maybe you'd like to start this time?
So there are a lot of different approaches to this. My general advice is don't do any more than 2. So, you know, yeah, two back-to-back days. Some people will do 3. I think you're degrading yourself too much. But again, that's my own opinion, and that's how I coach. Someone else might do something differently and have valid reasons for that. But I'd say the vast majority of people do 2 back-to-back days, because you're getting the kit. You've got to ask yourself, what are you trying to? What's your end result from that? For me, the second day on back-to-back training is understanding what it feels like, what your body feels like to run on tired legs, but also to understand, for your body to understand how it's going to feel. So are you still able to take on the same nutrition, for example? Are you still going to be able to run with the backpack after you've got whole days chafing, for example? Or what do that sustained impact on your feet, which is a big one for dragons, you know, are you going to get that long-term impact damage going through through the week? So I would say back-to-back days 2. I wouldn't do them every week. I would maybe do 1 or 2 a block, depending on where you are in your training level, and but then doing longer runs potentially in the weeks as well. So, you know, on a weekly basis. Yeah. People coach differently, and the key thing is you've got to do what works for you. What you could do also is bring it down to a much lower level and do more time on the hills, but in a much lower intensity, and that's all very, very good training as well. And that's a good thing to do, I think, if you're coming into fitness. You know, you're not quite running in the hills in the mountains just yet, but if you know, you could hike, and that's still exceptionally good training for Dragon's Back, because the vast majority of people will be fast hiking most of it for a chunk of it, even the front runners.
Yeah,
and with the hiking, you haven't got the intensity either. You haven't got the impact, sorry. Whereas if you're just running, I suppose I agree with you, just what I can say is multiple days builds the fatigue. So if you're doing 3 days back to back, the recovery you actually need for 3 days is so much greater than 2 days.
Yeah.
And you end up actually ruining that training block, because you need like almost a week off. It's like you've done a race almost. You haven't, but you've done such damage to those muscles that you need such a recovery. Whereas, like you were saying, you're 2 days back to back. If you're doing a couple of them in a block, you can allow those few days recovery and still get that good training going. But you start doing 3 or 4 days, the damage is too great that you're doing
your
to your
injury
body.
risk goes right up as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I think sorry, you go, Eleanor. I don't need to add anything else.
Shane, you might have.
I guess all I was going to say, what I've kind of picked up on is over the years, a lot of the participants tend to do back-to-back days, not so much because they're looking for the training benefit, but because it's a really efficient way to recce the course.
It is, yeah.
And you split a day into 2 halves, so you're doing about, I don't know, 30 to 40 kilometers in a day. And, you know, if you're going steady, lots of chat and banter, you're not racing, obviously, that's a good distance to do, and it builds the resilience, and you recce the course.
Yeah.
But what I did, because of my stress fracture and I couldn't run, I did a lot of hiking because I really wanted to cover the route, but I was conscious that I was like, I'm not going to get this route covered in the time I've got. So when I started to be able to walk again, but I couldn't run, I was fast packing. I was basically hiking with a tent and kit. But what it was brilliant for was actually testing what I needed and what I didn't. I was replicating the camping side of it and going, well, that doesn't work, or that works. And what am my sleeping bag? You know, I was testing it in sort of real setting. So the hiking trips covered the mileage, and I recce'd the route. I got hiking in the mountains, which got me stronger, and I was testing all my kit. So it was actually really beneficial.
Sounds good.
I think we've had a lot of participants on these webinars kind of highlight how kind of testing the camping kit and everything is just as important really as like recceing the route and stuff. So that's a really good point to make. This is a really interesting question, actually. What would each of you do differently next time? Shall we start with you, Trish?
Even now, the fact I've been chatting to Zoe and Robin about this as well, so I changed quite a bit, I think, in terms of my own training for Dragon's Back. Not a huge amount, but I certainly make some changes to it, because I think once you've raced it, you really do understand how you could improve. And there's so much in terms of Dragon's Back that I think you can always make improvements on. So I would definitely change some elements of training, particularly treadmill miles. I think people massively, and I have done previously, boo-hooed treadmill miles because they're boring. Nobody wants to run on a treadmill, do they? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be gained from doing some treadmill elevation for sure. I definitely increase, I would say, my treadmill elevation. I'd also increase I did have good intentions to do more strength and conditioning, but with life and when things get really busy, that's definitely the first thing to go for me. It's strength and conditioning, and I would definitely do more going forward. So yeah, there's always things you can tweak, and you can always make improvements. And I think that's one of the most incredible things about coaching, is that you're always looking for improvements, aren't you? You're always looking to streamline or to get better. But yeah, I definitely do. I think if you live in the flatlands, there's a lot of things you can do to really help you in a more efficient and effective way.
And Zoe, what would you do differently?
Mine, well, I suppose one big thing would be nutrition. I would have taken a lot more gels. I will take a lot more gels next time. I was thinking, when you go out on the hill, I tend to go, I can have some gels and then I want real food. And I've heard a lot of people say this post Dragon's Back, but other many multi-day things that I could have just taken on more gels. Robin said it. Hugh was saying it, literally all you want. I just didn't want food. I did not want the real food, but the gels would go in, because you are working at an effort, but only like a steady effort throughout the day. So your gut, I found my gut would be able to process them better. So for next year, I will be taking a lot more gels. I came home with a lot of real food and ran out of gels, and I just wish I'd had more gels. I won't be bringing any chocolate. I thought I'd love chocolate. I love chocolate, but literally my body just didn't want to know. So chocolate isn't coming with me. And then the other thing is on the training side of it, I did some, but I reflect as descending. And I sort of say this now when I speak to people who are doing these sorts of races. I did a lot of uphill training, and I do gym work, quads, squats, etc., but actually reverse hill reps. So find a hill that is a good gradient and runnable, jog up it, and then smash the downs. The purpose is to break your legs in training. You'll get DOMs from it, but if you can trash them in training, you will do it. Everyone worries about the ascent. How much ascent should I be doing each week? That is true, but the descent is as important, because you need your legs to be conditioned to be able to take what you're going to be putting through them day after day after day. Chris last year was a prime example, wasn't it? His quads just went. Yeah. And he'd smashed it really hard those first few days. He just said, I've got nothing left in my quads. Yeah. And that was from the descending.
Yeah. It's worth maybe making the obvious comment that the 17,500 meters of up, there's also 17,500 meters of down to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Someone has asked, so how can you train in the best possible way without having to spend too much? So I'm guessing this is potentially someone who lives a long way from Wales, so doesn't want to spend a lot of money traveling to Wales every weekend, understandably. I guess, what tips would you have? Trish, would you like to start?
Yeah, so the first one is understand how many recce days you want to do. If you've got a year, for example, till Dragon's Back, and there's 6 days you want to cover, get those dates in the diary now and see if you can link up with other people doing Dragon's Back in your area, for example, who might be able to car share to do those days, for example. That'd be one of the first things I do, because you definitely want to get that technical training in. It's really important that you get over the technical terrain and practice, the descents and the ascents, like Zoe was saying just there. So car share and get those recce days in the diary if you can now. That'd be the first one. The second thing is, if you do live far away, is to sign up for a gym. Now you can get quite good cheap gym memberships. The plus of that, it is an expense, but the plus of that is you can use the treadmill for your elevation. You can also use the gym for your strength and conditioning. So, you know, even if it's say 20, 30 pounds a month, that's much cheaper than having to drive, you know, for a few hours every weekend in order to get to some proper hills to do your elevation training. If you can't do that, any hill is a good hill. So you just go up and down, up and down. I can't remember, I think it was just reading, so Kipchoge, for example, who said any hill is a good hill. Someone asked him the question of what type of hill work you did, and he said a hill. He said any hill is a good hill. Obviously he's doing slightly different, but I still think he did pretty well on Dragon's Back, right? So find a hill, just any hill you can do, and work hard on those ups and downs, because you've got to condition the legs. You don't need a massive hill to get some conditioning. Yes, you do need to do those long ascents and those long descents, but if you can only pack those into your weekends, pack them into your recce weekends. The rest of the time you've got to do what you can do with what you've got. So I would do that. Car share as much as possible to recce days. If you can't do long recce days, then try and put some money into a gym. If you can't do that, find a hill, any hill in your local area, and make it a key part of your training, 2 to 3 times a week.
So
it's working with what you've got, isn't it, Trish? Prime example, I went down to stay with Trish. Trish lives in the flattest place ever. She's like, we've got one hill. I was like, perfect, that's all we need. So I basically took Trish, who'd just coming back from COVID or a cold, and just beasted her up and down a hill, and she was dying.
Well, my max heart rate on that session.
I think you did get your max heart rate on that session, mate. But what it was is, there's a really steady, good incline, a bit of a flat, the descent, and a bit of a flat. So you can get, and you can really vary it. You can do really short, hard intervals, or as we were doing, more of a threshold session where you're pushing the whole way around. So you're pushing on the descents and you're pushing on the ups. You can use one hill for multiple types of training, the downhills, the uphills, everything. So you don't have to, everyone will have a hill near them that they can use. You don't have to travel and spend. But like you said, Trish, if you can just allocate, you've got a year. So if you can allocate 6 training days or something that you are going to go and get to those mountains, car share, etc., that's sort of almost, if you ask, a bit of a minimal investment. You need to do some training I'm not saying on the terrain, on the course if you can't, because not everyone lives in this country or anything, but to get to some mountains, to practice some technical terrain, you need to do some.
Yeah. So someone's asked, this comes up quite a lot on our webinars, which is how much navigation training do you recommend? So shall we start with Zoe this time, switch it up?
So again, people who know me will laugh because I can get lost in a round room. When it comes, so I am not a map and a compass person. Yes, I can use a map and a compass. However, at a race, I take my map, I put it at the bottom of my bag, and I basically don't take it out till the end of a race. Nav-wise, the Dragon's Back, well, there's definitely people who do it who have never set foot on the course, and they managed to do it without hardly getting lost at all. A mate of ours, Gary Thwaites, did it this year. He hadn't set foot on one bit of the course. I think he did a couple of bits where he went wrong, but sometimes following someone else. But most people have got a snazzy watch these days that will tell them where to go. If you've got the watch and you stay on the course, then the nav is fine, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so I am a map and compass person, so I would say the nav on Dragon's Back is pretty easy. It's during the day, and the vast majority of people will have a watch. But if you don't have a watch, there's a massive line of people the majority of the time. I'd say there was very few, with the exception of the first and second day, there was very few times I couldn't see anyone else on the course, either within the space of half an hour, I would say. There was always somebody. So that generally there is a line of people you can follow. You do need to be able to navigate though, and I would, from a safety perspective, I would say you shouldn't you shouldn't be going on Dragon's Back if you're not capable in the mountains. From a personal perspective, I think you have a responsibility, if you're going to do that race, to understand that it's a dangerous place. It can be a dangerous place. So you do, I would say you do have to have some understanding of basic navigation, be it from your watch or a map, whatever. I mean, my watch is amazing, and I can, I've got a whole map on it, which is fantastic, and it's got all sorts of weird things I don't understand. But if you either understand how to use your watch and to utilize it properly, or to have some basic map and compass skills, either or.
What I would say is definitely that you need the map and compass skills, because you can't rely on your watch. If your watch dies, you've got to be able to use that map and compass. But what I would say, and I am a technology person, I will never go into a race without two methods. I will have the route on my watch. I personally use OS Maps, but there's all sorts of apps out there that you can route it on. I will always have the route on two devices, and then the map in my bag. But fundamentally, if you've got it on two devices, and you can download it, so take OS Maps, you can download the map, so it doesn't matter if you don't have phone signal, you will always have that route. It has GPX on it, so you can have it, phone and watch, and then a map as a backup.
I might just butt in and say to everybody that we do offer a GPX of the recommended route, so that's available to everybody, and you can load that onto a watch or a phone. There is plenty of examples of people who have no map and compass skills completing the race. But every year I'm just thinking back this year, last year, I think of the last two editions, there's at least one person I can think of whose race ended when their watch failed and the batteries ended, run out early, something unexpected happened and they had nothing to fall back to, and that ended their race. So, the more experience you have, or a backup device, if you're competent with map and compass, it just reduces the chances of things going wrong for you.
And the stress of not knowing where you are, or not really understanding how far you've got to go. Those are all things you can control again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to ask one more question, but thank you everyone for sending them in. It's been really great. And actually, I think this one might be best pitched towards Shane, but someone has asked, they're planning for the hatchling, but they feel like they'd be missing out on trying the full route. Is it possible for a new runner with a year's training
to do Dragon's Back?
Yeah.
It depends on the individual. I mean, I can think of a phenomenal runner. I'll give a real example, Jo Stefanescu, who I met working as an event doctor when she did not run. She took up running, and I think she got a silver medal at the World 100K Championships within 12 months. So there are those phenomenons out there. And I would say anything's possible, but I would also probably say you're not stacking the odds in your favour to enter Dragon's Back on a year's worth of running. There's so many good adventures, so many good races that you can do to build up to a successful Dragon's Back. So maybe a more conservative approach might be better, or accept you're into the hatchling and come to the race with that as the goal.
Do it.
I guess the lovely thing about the hatchling is you can start the full route, and then if you realise that it isn't possible, the hatchling is there as an option.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, so shall we wrap it up there, Eleanor?
Yeah.
I'm going to say I've got 2 points, 2 things to say. First of all, this picture in the background, that is me on the finish line of the Dragon's Back this year. This was
Brilliant picture.
This was the photographer testing the shot for this. Was, I think, Hugh and Robin were like 5 minutes out and we're like, right, we've got to practice getting that killer shot, and I was posing on the finish line for them. But it gave me a lot of pleasure as an organizer to pull it all together and to be there, share the journey, the experience of everybody. Obviously we're in our team uniform tonight, This was not arranged. This is absolutely what we all put on to do our Dragon's Back webinar, and I think
just shows how sad we are.
It does. It
It
speaks volumes about the
We're
impression
all
this
wearing the
race
same
has.
pants as well.
Trish hasn't taken hers off yet.
We won't show those.
I would like to thank everybody for their time this evening. If you've got any questions, feel free to fire us an email. Just phone the office up. Normally, our colleague Charlie answers the phone. She's super friendly, incredibly knowledgeable. Just give us a call, ask a question. We'd love to see you at the Dragon's Back or one of our other events. Cape Wrath Ultra is another long kind of test of endurance in the Scottish Highlands. Trish, Zoe, thank you very much for your time this evening. I can't thank you enough. I will try at some point soon. Eleanor, thanks for giving up your evening. And I will see hopefully quite a lot of you next month for the next edition of our little webinars. Okay, thanks very much. Good night, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
See ya.